Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I kind of want to go through the data mines from the last few days, because there's a few interesting things, especially when it comes to radars. Also, at the same time, there's a little event going on. There's a new decal for French Air Force's Day. Basically, France has been actively using combat aircraft since the First World War, and in the 1920s, France's combat aircraft fleet was the largest in Europe, with more than 1,000 aircraft. At that time, the French Air Force was still part of the army, until they separated on the 2nd of July 1934. Currently, the French Air Force has more than 40,000 people serving and is armed with 200 modern multi-purpose Mirage 2000s and also Rafale aircraft. Basically, you can get yourself a French Air Force's Day 2025 decal from the 3rd of July until the 7th. You just have to play 3 battles using French aircraft at rank 3 or higher, and you can get access to it. So in the data mines, there's a bunch of little things. For example, there was some model or texture changes to a bunch of different stuff. The MiG-29, some of the Hunters, and also even the Sherman. Some of them we actually saw in the changelogs that we talked about yesterday in terms of armor and also in terms of just making sure that the materials were correct on the specific vehicles. Another thing also got added, which is a new Xbox decal, which is the superhero tank snail Xbox one, which, to be honest, looks kind of crazy. PlayStation and also Xbox get these really cool, kind of unique snail decals, and I really hope in the future, we've seen it kind of happen with Xbox, especially Games Pass and stuff like that, but I really hope we get to a point where all console and PC stuff all gets merged together. One of the things that gets brought up a lot when it comes to War Thunder is access to the market for everybody, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think everybody should have access to the Gaijin market. I think generally it would actually be an incredibly positive thing if that was the case, but unfortunately we don't have that, and whether that's because of Sony, whether that's because of Microsoft, whether that's because of some other party, it just kind of sucks because it means that everybody has to live by different rules. One of the things that always made me sad about the crafting events back in the day was obviously the fact you couldn't grind everything out, but also when it came to the console guys, they literally had to spend money in order to grind, the stuff out instead of being able to use the market, maybe selling stuff and then buying others in that way. So hopefully at some point all of these decals can be there for everybody, and hopefully we have a universal system eventually. I doubt it's going to happen because unfortunately exclusivity is one of the main selling points of consoles, but at least over the last few years it has been eroded at least a little bit. For the Captor M and also the N011M and many other radars, by the way. So basically a lot of high-tier air radars and also a lot of high-tier ground radars, especially ones which recently got added. They added some NCTR additions. So these are basically the kind of names of stuff that you can see. So basically they added stuff like the J35 Draken for the F-35, the F-18 for the FA-18s, and then the F-16, the F-2 for the F-2, and then also the F-5 for the F-5E. So they're just making it so the vehicles that were added in the last update are now actually, properly cited by the NCTR setup. It's kind of cool that they added that thing. It's pretty nuts that it's one of those things that I didn't even think about them ever adding. There's so many things, especially when it comes to radars. Radars are insanely technical when it comes to War Thunder, and to see them actually get to a point where they just have so much to them is just insane, and also just really cool. The Mirage 3S, so first of all, the drop tank fuel mass has been decreased. Basically, it used to be 730, now it is 592 kilos, and this brings the total internal and external fuel mass down from 3,050 to 2,918. So at least you'll be a bit lighter, but also at the same time, you'll probably have less fuel. Also, they changed the custom loadout changes. Basically, slots 2 and 6 changed. The option changed from 1 JATO stock. It can now be equipped together with the SEPR 844 stock. So basically, you could actually put on the kind of extra rocket that the Mirage 3 gets, but not put on the fuel, because that makes sense. But luckily, they fixed that now, so it isn't redundant. Also, they continuously change the NCTR stuff. Basically, they made it so the CSSA5 can now identify basically everything. So they fixed that across the board. One of the issues, once again, with a lot of these newer vehicles is when it comes to RWRs, they weren't kind of like being picked up, but nowadays they will. So basically, the enemy vehicles will be able to see it, and it will also be able to see enemy vehicles. One of the most annoying things for me in the game, by the way, is the Soviet RWRs. So for the MiG-23s specifically, and the MiG-27s, I've had this issue. Basically, the MiG-23 doesn't pick up itself, and it also doesn't pick up basically other Russian vehicles. So if you are in a mirror matchup where you're in, let's say, the Russian MiG-23 or one of the Russian MiG-23s, and then you face like the German MiG-23, if they have a lock on you and they fire a missile at you, you have no idea because it just doesn't show on the screen. So it's one of the most annoying things in the game, and unfortunately I don't think it'll ever be changed, just because of the fact that's kind of how it worked in real life. Luckily other nations like kind of fixed that, so it's not a huge issue, but it's just one of those which is really annoying. They also continuously basically changed the not just search radar for the CSSA5, but also the track radar. So now the track radar can also be identified and by a lot of things, which is really cool. And also what they ended up doing is the ANAQ-33, the ATB. This is the sniper pod, I believe, which they added in. So they nerfed it, right? It went from 20.46 and 73.66. That's what it is now, and now it's being moved once again to 20.46 to 147.32. So somebody is obviously getting some conflicting sources when it comes to the effectiveness of that pod. The sniper pod seems incredibly powerful, insane zoom on it, and obviously one of the most modern pieces of optical pods that we have when it comes to real life. So it's just insane thinking about it. I have heard generally that when it comes to War Thunder and the CAS issues right now, it is a little bit better at high tier, obviously with a lot of the SAM systems being added. I have seen people start really kind of getting annoyed at the SAM systems, not just from like a facing them point of view, but also basically just getting overrun by tanks, just getting hammered by them because people are just rushing spawns to go after the SAM systems. But the problem is that that was always going to happen, right? Like when you have this rock, paper, scissors setup, you're always going to have stuff that's going to kind of nuke you. The problem with the SAM systems is kind of like how the game works. So you have to go on an MBT or a light tank first off to be able to actually combat the stuff that's on the ground. And then, you know, so if you go in a SAM system straight away, you're pretty much worthless to your team. Like there's not a lot you can do. And then once the planes start coming in, you're probably going to get hit by them already because you might still be in your tank. So then you spawn in the SAM system to counter them, and therefore you're on the back foot. Or, you know, the enemy team is already on the front foot because the CAS has already come in and they've already got the front foot advantage. So it's one of those things which it's always going to be a bit of a mess in terms of like the balance of the whole thing. But hopefully people can at least have a bit of fun with it and enjoy themselves. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.